I have heard that the average person when they go to hospital stays 4 days. But if you're an older person, it's 66 days.
It's a long time, isn't it? And that's an average. A lot of older people spend a lot longer than 66 days.
And when all those days in hospital you become deconditioned?
Yeah, imagine you're just lying in bed all the time. You can't get out and about. You know, you can only have limited visitors. It's really restrictive. And so you really deteriorate really quickly. Your health does deteriorate.
And I know we're going to talk about this further, but we actually have a great residential aged care system. It's recognised across the world as being some of the best in the business.
Yeah. Like for our volunteers, we're often doing tours of residential homes around the region, and we're always blown away by how fantastic they are and how different they are and what they have to offer. You know, I always encourage people to go and have a look because they, you know, all our aged care providers really welcome visitors. They have cafes. They're great places. So, yeah, we should be proud of the aged care providers that we have in our region.
Well, we're going to get into that. I'm just going to take a moment to do an intro. Hi everyone, I'm Nicky Sloan. I'm CEO of Community Industry Group, and I'm coming to you today from the beautiful lands of the Dharawal people. Welcome to Community Matters, the podcast where we explore community innovative solutions to issues across our community and the people in our community who are making a difference. And one of those people is our fabulous STARS volunteer, Tanya Southworth, coordinates the STARS program that we're running actually here at Community Industry Group. And I wanted to get her on the podcast to talk about the work she's doing, her volunteers, and what they're learning about older people who are currently in BEDBLOCK situation.
Thanks, Nicky. I can't take any credit because it's our volunteers and also the Community Industry Group that always supports everything that we do that really helps us achieve what we do. Let me just first explain what STARS stands for. So it's an acronym, and it stands for Support Transition Assistance Support Service. It sounds like a lot. That's why we've turned it into a great acronym like STARS. But if we think about what those terms are and what we do, so support transition, so our key role for our volunteers, we have 19 at the moment, fantastic group of very diverse experience in aged care, really willing to step in and support the transition of older people in the hospital, an older person, but they also support some of the people in the hospital, social workers, nurses, there's so many allied health professionals all working extremely hard in the hospital to help that older person transition into aged care. And there's also aged care providers doing their very best too. So our volunteers, they support everyone in that system. And it's assistance. So it's assistance to all those different people, but mainly to the older person and their family. And we have support in there because we support people. We're not there to sell anything. We're not trying to push anyone into doing anything. We're there to support that older person. Whatever their needs are, that's what we're there. And it's a service for everyone in our community because if we think about it, when our volunteers assist an older person in the hospital to find an aged care place, then that means that bed's freed up for other people that might need that place in the hospital. So we have 19 volunteers, did I mention?
You did,
yeah,
and we are so grateful to everybody who gives their time to this program.
Yeah, incredible. A lot of them work full-time. I'm always blown away that they can fit us in, but they always do. I think they feel very passionately, like the rest of us that know the circumstances of an older person being in hospital and unable to leave because they've got to make these really complex decisions about moving into aged care. I mean, they've just left their home in an ambulance, landed in hospital, and 4 days later they get told by this whole team that they can't go home and they've got to go into aged care. I mean, that's a momentous decision for an older person to make. So I'm very proud that our volunteers can step in there, spend some time, because it does take time. It's probably the one thing that our volunteers have that a lot of others don't have in the hospital or aged care system. We just have that time to spend alongside that older person and often their families as well.
I think you make such an important point about the really critical, life-changing decision that people are having to make And as you say, they just left their home that morning in an ambulance. I know for me, if someone said to me today, you left home today and you are never going to go back, I'd be traumatised.
Yeah.
And not only that, but your kids are going to come in and they're going to clear everything out.
Yeah.
And I'd be thinking about my things. I'd be thinking about the things they're going to find. Did I leave the coffee cup on the table? I don't know, all of those things.
Yeah.
It must be really traumatic for those older people.
There's one older person who's just been in that very circumstance, and she has 4 sons that she had to trust to back up her home. She was having minor palpitations, but we helped her put a list together of the really important things for her. And what she's told me and the volunteer that's been assisting her is that they actually did a really good job. So you can't underestimate what a family can do, Nicky.
Very good. So your STARS volunteers, you say they work with the older person and with the families. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that are worrying both the older person and worrying the family members?
So a great example is one older gentleman who was suffering from memory loss, and he had deteriorated so much that really the reality was he wasn't able to go back home and he had to go into aged care. But the problem for him was that his 2 daughters were at odds about what was going to happen with their father. One daughter lived a long way away and really wanted her father to get home care services, which most people would love. But the other daughter, who lived close by, she just knew that there was no amount of services that could replace what he really needed. He not only needed 24/7 care, he needed that social interaction and that is provided in aged care that he just could not get from home. So that was an example of how what our volunteer did is, instead of spending time with the older person, she spent a lot of time with his 2 daughters, over the phone with the daughter that lived far away, on the phone, quite a few chats, and having coffee with the other daughter. And what Catherine, who was our volunteer in this circumstance, she said she was just often putting their mind to rest. There was a lot of guilt about their dad going into aged care. But the other thing that I think is a really good point here is the daughter that lived a long way away, she kind of thought aged care was like a prison. It was like once he went into aged care, he's locked in there, like he is in hospital, really. It's hard to leave hospital for day leave, for good reason. But in aged care, it's completely different. So once she knew that, he could go on weekend outings with the family, he could go on social outings, and he had a lot of freedom and a lot of choice. Once she found that out, it really changed her mind, and he's now in a fantastic aged care facility that has views of an ocean. His room has views of an ocean, which he's always had, and so he's settled in really well.
Yeah, that's a great example. I know it's a really new program. It's a first in Australia, this program. You must be so proud of that.
Yeah.
I know it's quite new, but are you seeing many successes for older people?
Well, so we've had 18 referrals. Doesn't seem like a lot. We work in a couple of different hospitals. We've started slowly because we are starting out. So we thought we'd start in one hospital, which was Bulli, learn as much as we could, and then move into Shell Harbour, learn as much as we could. They're very different hospitals. Shell Harbour's a normal hospital. You go in there for, to get your appendix out and have surgery. Bulli's quite different. It is a hospital, but it has a lot of people who are older, who need geriatric care, and so that's quite a different hospital. And then once we worked with those teams to really get our processes right, because one of the things is when people are limited on time, to try and make a referral. So we've really worked hard to simplify that, and everyone in the hospital system has been by our side, and they've started to talk about us with the other hospitals. So what's happened is I haven't really needed to sell STARS to the other hospitals like Coaldale and Fig Tree, because that's been done by the team in Bulli and Shell Harbour. They've been talking about the wonderful work we've been doing. So, it's the true, what they say, it's word of mouth. But I think out of the 18 referrals, I should say 14 have now transitioned to aged care and are doing really well. I always like to just see how they're going once they're in aged care, because, you know, we do get quite close and you really get to know these older people, and all of them are doing well, yeah. And some we thought would really find it really difficult to find a place due to many different factors of their health condition, but they're doing really well.
I love, Tanya, that you talk about the collaboration that you've got with the ISLD staff in the hospitals.
Yeah.
And you made the point earlier, and I think we should make it again, that this is not about a deficiency in any of the work that they're doing. Everybody in those hospitals is working really hard for the older people.
Yeah.
What you and your volunteers are giving is the time that these busy people don't have. Tanya, how could people from the community help with this important work?
Yeah, it's a really good question, something I ask myself all the time, and I'm always, I suppose my suggestion to everyone in the community is to think about aged care and what's available, and to start talking about it with each other. I know I do that a lot in my community. I live in the beautiful Kangaroo Valley, and it's a fantastic community. We're all very close, but we have gone through not only catastrophic fires, floods and COVID in succession. It means that we're all very close to each other, and I think I share a lot about what I've learnt through working in the STARS program, and I'm often talking about the aged care providers that I visit and how amazing they are, and the places I'd like to go when I'm older. But I'm trying to make it a conversation that's more normal, instead of a conversation that's always brushed aside and not talked about until it's a crisis. That's how I think in our community is to open their minds to really what the benefits are of thinking about aged care. How there's going to be, I hope, a lot more home services, which is another part of this. Maybe even advocating for more services in the community, because I know we're a regional area, Kangaroo Valley. If you need to go into residential care in the valley, you really need to go outside of the valley. And that's a bit sad, but it is a reality. But I just think maybe a bit of advocacy as well within the community is starting to talk about it with your local member, your council, about how important aged care services are. But most importantly, talk to your neighbours. That's what I've been doing. My neighbour next door, her mum is living with her for the last few years. She has early onset dementia, so she's quite young, but she has significant memory loss. But if you saw her, she's very attractive, very fit. You're kind of surprised. It's not until you really talk to her that you realise how her memory loss is affecting her. But her and I are quite close because we're always in the garden, you know, gardening and that, and you know, so we're often doing a lot of hand signals, and she helps me when my naughty dogs escape into her yard, and her and I have a lot of laughs trying to catch the dog. But I know that relationship. I think as time's gone on, I've been talking to her daughter, that's my neighbour that she lives with, about the aged care services I know about and that would be available. She does get some home services, but I think it's getting to the point where she needs more. So these are just conversations. I think they just need to be more normalised. Yeah, I that's what I'm suggesting to people in the community that I'm connected with.
And what about things that you've noticed or you're through the STARS volunteers that could make a change at the system level?
You mean the big
picture? Or have you noticed anything there?
Yeah, look, definitely. It's about how we work together and collaborate, and about time for that collaboration and talking to each other, being open about and frank about some of the issues. And that's what I found first going into the first hospital, is they had a few concerns, but they didn't really talk about it until I really said, look, I've noticed the referrals having started, and that's when they talked to me about their concerns. And once they realised I welcomed to know their concerns so I could do something about it. So that's, I think, a lot more of that opportunity for everyone, aged care, hospitals, and I would say even older people, to be part of that conversation and collaboration. And the government, every level of government, I'd like all of us to collaborate and work together. We're all going to grow older if we're fortunate, you know. So most of us are going to be facing these decisions one day. So wouldn't it be great if we're all in it together, working out the best way forward?
Gosh, we've had a few conversations now about bed block and the bed block issue, and every single time it's come back to collaboration.
Yeah.
It's an important, clearly a really important point to make. Tanya, this podcast is called Community Matters. Could you tell us a story about a person or people in this community that mattered to you?
Well, I think I just shared about my neighbour in Kangaroo Valley. And I think she's a person who I really do care for, and I do realise that what she's experiencing must be incredibly challenging for her and her family. So I'm very conscious of being a friend to her, not just a neighbour. And like, for example, we've got a really active, like after going through catastrophic fires, we're very connected in our neighbourhood and created a group. But my question to our group is, how do we ensure my neighbour who has dementia, memory loss, significant memory loss, so that we can keep her engaged in case there's a crisis and we have to leave? What do we do? So that's what I care about in my community, that it's very inclusive, and particularly of older people, regardless of whether they, a lot of our older people in my community, can I just say I'm part of a community garden, and I have 3 members who are in their 90s, 3 older gentlemen. None of them can hear. So there's a bit of yelling when they're around, but they're all fantastic contributors to our community garden. So don't ever think that just because someone's getting older that they can't contribute to the community as well. So that's just my couple of community examples.
Well, I think it's a really great example of why community matters.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanya, for coming along today and telling us about the STARS program. Thank you so much for the work you and your STARS volunteers are doing. I cannot thank the volunteers enough. I cannot thank you enough for being part of this project and for being the driving force behind it. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Community Matters. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share, and tune in next time for more community solutions and innovations. Until then, Community Matters.